Hello everyone, my name is Ajmw. I'm an illustrator, and today we're going through the drawings I did for Maysia 2021. In case you don't know, Maysia was this month-long drawing event in May organized by this group of talented artists. The main idea was geared towards other Asian illustrators like themselves to help them embrace their heritage as well as share more about themselves through their art. I remember seeing this trending on Twitter earlier in the month and got really excited for it. This would be a great opportunity for myself to explore my Filipino background, rediscover my self-confidence as an artist, and just overall keep myself busy from the agony that is job hunting. So the way it works is that every day in the month would be a new drawing prompt to help you share more about yourself and your culture. Now, I didn't cover every single day. I've done events like Inktober in the past, and as much as I enjoyed the rush, the creativity part of my brain would be completely fried halfway through. So instead, this time around, I wanted to keep more of a relaxed pace, like skip a couple days here and there. But in the end, I would have more artwork that was fully colored and much more well thought of rather than rushed. Let's begin with day 1, a self-portrait. Now, I know I just said that I wanted to make well thought of pieces, but I didn't think too much for this one. It's a self-portrait. I don't want to go over the top right away. I just wanted to, keep it simple with a straightforward angle. Tried making things interesting with a head tilt. Got my hipster round glasses, my quarantine hair, and an open collared shirt because I'm feeling saucy. So I work with Procreate on an iPad Pro, and this is how my usual process goes. So I start out with a rough sketch, then do flat colors, all in individual layers. So the head, neck, 2 parts of the hair, and the shirt all have their own layers. I do this so that I can keep all of those crisp edges of the shape. So when I get into more other stuff like the shadows and highlights, I set those layers to alpha lock, and then I can go loose or bold with my brushstrokes without interfering with the other parts of the drawing. Once I get the basic colors down, I make another layer on top of everything else for the smaller details. It mostly consists of simple, fine brushstrokes to help convey the basic children book rhymes, eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. I mean, it's not just that, but it's also the collarbone, the strands of the hair, even the folds and hems on the clothing. It gets more complicated when you have more scenery stuff, like multiple people, props, background, but thank God I kept this simple. Okay, so right here, this is where it gets a little bit weird, but trust me, I'm just playing around with multiply layers so I can get deeper shadows. I found that in my older drawings, my character would blend in with the background in a bad way, to the point where you couldn't read it. It would be hard to read where they are. So I use a multiply layer that has a desaturated grayish purple, and that usually helps add that extra bit of contrast to make your drawing pop. So finish it off with the vertical stripes on the shirt, add a green background with a foliage brush, and we're essentially done. Overall, I think this drawing's okay, not my personal best, but let's do a better job in the next drawing. So, day 3, fruit. Now, I had a better idea for this portrait, and that idea was sexy hand gestures. I don't know. I was watching the opening for Gundam Wing, and that part when you see Hiro Huey with his hands over his face, slowly uncovering it to the chorus line. I was like, this is peak pretty boy aesthetic, and I need to draw this. I was also inspired by Hisashi Guchi's piece called Tsupa, or sour in Japanese. It's essentially a simple portrait of a girl biting into a lemon, and it's one of my favorite art pieces because it's just simple yet beautiful, and I want to recreate that in my own way, but instead of using lemons, I use calamansi, which is a common citrus fruit from the Philippines. So Same process as before, rough sketch, then added a little refined sketch, then a bit of flat colors. This portrait is a lot more zoomed in than the last one, so I wanted to add more of an intimate vibe to it. When you think about it, if you're up close to someone, like up to that close, you're usually either trying to threaten them or you're trying to kiss them, and I would rather be the later one of the two. Another element I wanted to add as a focus to this illustration was bright, vibrant colors. I think that element speaks very well to the Filipino personality. Luckily, calamansi, if you pick it out early, has this very distinct green color, and when you chop it, it has this very distinct yellow color. So I felt it was natural to add green and yellow to the entire illustration to tie in with the whole theme. I think the biggest challenge for this illustration was the hands. I mean, I've drawn hands before, but if they're close up like that, you initially think about adding those details like the lines around the palms to make it more realistic. And I don't know, I didn't find it appealing, so I scrapped it and redrew it, but with photo reference this time. And I simplified the approach a bit more by adding less lines, but more strong shadow shapes to, accentuate that form a bit more. And I'm pretty happy how that turned out. After the multiply layer, I went back and added some red blush around the hands, cheeks, to create more of a flirty nature. I see it a lot in pinup art, and I think it's a nice touch to give the body parts more warmth and a plush feeling. On the right, I wrote the word maasim, which is sour in Tagalog. It's kind of a nice nod to Hisashi Guchi's Supa, but I think I left it out in the end. Once I had those elements, I quickly rendered the hair and we're finished. Overall, I like this one a lot more than the first. Could have made a sour face with the expression, but I still enjoy the flirty vibes. Final drawing for this VOD is day 5, traditional wear. Now, this one took a lot longer than expected because I had one idea, then suddenly shifted to a different idea. I initially went with a man wearing a barong and a woman wearing a Santa Clara outfit, and I was liking it, tried refining the pose a bit more. I really like the Santa Clara outfit, the square-esque collar, the lace sleeves, the high-waisted long skirt with the vertical stripe pattern. But then I was reminded by my friend Michelle Draws on Instagram. She did this collection of deities or gods or diwatas from the pre-colonial era of the Philippines. Now, I don't know too much about that era, but it's so interesting to see and has such good design shapes here and there. So after a couple hours of researching, I came up with this drawing of a Filipino warrior. This piece was pretty complicated overall. I mean, the guy is in midair, he's in motion, so his hair, his clothes, the unsheathing of his swords are all in motion, and his arms overlapping, and there's foreshortening too, so not only had to do multiple sketches, but I also had to separate those sketches into different components like the jacket, the pants, different body parts here and there. Needless to say, I was a bit overwhelmed. So I decided to change up my process a bit. Instead of focusing on strong shapes, I focused more on a strong line art. I figured it would help me feel less overwhelmed by all the different elements in the drawing. And also I thought a clean line art would help complement the more serious tone and the sense of action for the character more. While doing the line art process, I also changed some stuff like the design of the pants and the headpiece to intentionally make my coloring process easier. And I added some other stuff like fabric around the sheath and a lot more details and decorations around the weapon. Afterwards, I went with a lush color palette, a little bit like purple, some magenta, a nice steel-esque blue. But since the colors were similar in value, I did another multiply layer, but I erased some of the parts for highlights. Now for the shadows and highlights, I tried focusing more on like triangular shapes, very hard angles. In a way, this would help invoke that sense of action and seriousness and that sense of dynamicness you'd see in like an action cartoon. Lastly, I added some details like blending in some of the black outlines with the color and adding some patterns on the clothing using an overlay layer. Overall, I'm really happy how this one turned out. Yes, it was a very different process than what I'm used to or what I'm comfortable with, but I think it's important to, get out of your comfort zone every now and then. And that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell if you like. If you want to see more illustrations, you're welcome to check out my website, Twitter, and Instagram. If you'd like to support me, I also have a Patreon, Ko-fi, and an online store. Links are down below. And stay tuned for the Maysia drawings part 2 in the near future. Take care, everyone.